This is Dora Tarver from e-projectmanagers.com, here with a video coaching session to help you with baselining in Project 2010. So, in Project 2010, as in the rest of Office 2010, you have a ribbon at the top of your project plan which has tabs that allow you to navigate to the functionality that's available in Project. So, when you have a project schedule, and below here is a dummy example, I inserted the % complete column. I formatted my text styles so that milestones appear blue and my critical tasks appear red. I added some dummy data, I put in some resources, and I put in some predecessors. And on the Gantt chart here you can see a little bit about how these tasks are currently appearing. So I want to show you really quickly how to, if you have a project schedule and you want to measure the difference between what you planned and what actually happens, typically what you'll do is baseline your schedule. A baseline is a snapshot of a period of time of how your data looked. And to do that, you would do the following. Go to the Project tab and select Set Baseline. Now, just so you know, from the Task tab, Gantt chart view, you can select the different views that are available within Project and select the Gantt chart view. Since we're already in the Gantt chart view, we don't need to do anything, but if you wanted to baseline specific tasks, you can select the task, hold your Shift key down, and highlight the rows that you want to baseline. And then, when you go to the Project tab, you can go to the Schedule section, the Schedule group, and select Set Baseline, and then click on Set Baseline. And because we have selected tasks, we can ask it to baseline just these selected tasks, or we can have it baseline the entire project. Also, when you set a baseline, Project gives you 11 baselines. The first one, which has no number next to it, and 10 more. When you're first baselining, just select the first one, and then click on OK. What Project did was it took a picture of this schedule, of this data, of these dates and duration, all the data in here. It took a snapshot of it and saved it in the baseline attributes of this database. So Project is a database. It stores a lot of information, and the way you see that information is through the view. So right now we're in a Gantt chart view. And our view is showing us the % complete, the task name, the duration, the start, the finish, predecessor, and the resource names. If we want to see our baseline information, we can insert it. So let's go ahead and insert that in front of the duration column. So to do that, we right-click on the duration column and select Insert Column. And I'm going to go ahead and insert the baseline start. I'll click on duration again, right-click, select Insert Column, and I'm going to select Baseline Finish. And let's say I want to also track the baseline duration. So if I right-click on Baseline Start, then I can insert a column in front of Baseline Start, and I'm going to select Baseline Duration. So all the baselines contain data that's a snapshot of the period in time that we baseline the project schedule. So in Project, by the way, when you put your mouse between two columns and you double click, it automatically resizes the column. So let's just resize this data so we can see everything. Now let me close this a little bit. So now that we've baselined the schedule, you can see that the data in the baseline schedule matches the data that's not baseline, the actual data. So what we can do is go ahead and update the schedule. Now, it can be confusing if you're showing multiple columns like this. You can actually edit the data here when you think you're editing the data here. You never want to change the baseline data. That's set in stone. Project does allow you to change it, but you don't want to change it because you'll lose the integrity of what the baseline is. One way to help yourself to avoid changing it is change the background color of the baseline columns, and you do that by selecting the columns. What I did was I held my mouse on the title bar and I rolled it over, kept my mouse down, and then released my mouse, selecting these 3 columns. Now I right click and I can either click on font and change the background color, or I can use a bucket up here and we'll change the background color of the baseline to, let's say, I'm going to change it to this color. Okay, so that will remind me not to edit this data. Okay, now if I'm managing my project schedule, and let's say my project began on time, so I'll mark that 100%. However, this task started, so let's say it's 25% complete, but the finish date has come and gone and it's not done. However, I have a new estimated finish date, which is going to be next Friday, the 20th. So I can change this to the 20th, and what happens here is it changes this to the 20th. Project changes the cells to blue to indicate that a change has occurred. This task is now 7 days long. It started on the 12th and is going to end on the 20th. And I have 1 resource working on this task right now. So this is my current schedule. This is the actual data that I have. And this is showing me on the baseline side what I originally planned to occur. The other detail I want to point out is that on the Gantt chart, right now my Gantt chart is generic, but I can change that. So on the Format tab, you'll see this is Gantt chart tools. It allows you to show critical tasks, slack, late tasks. It allows you to see the baseline. So because we selected the baseline, it's showing this bar now. When I roll my mouse over here and put my mouse above on the task, it pops up a little message. Hello, come on, let me try this one. It shows the baseline in this gray bar here. So the baseline, you can see, was originally the start date and finish date. Whoops, when you hold your mouse over it, when it pops up, shows, there we go, the baseline start of January 12th and the baseline finish of January 13th, which is 2 days. So these 2 days here are the baseline. Now because we changed that and we made it go out over a week, then the Gantt bar here is showing over a week in time. This is the task here. If the task is critical, meaning there's no slack, and you can see the baseline. Now another detail I want to share with you is when we increase the duration here, this resource, Sally, was impacted because she has another task down here that was scheduled to start on the 18th, which when this task was finishing on the 13th would have been fine. But now that this task is finishing on the 20th, there's a conflict here. And what Project 2010 is showing you is, with these red people over here, is that this task has a resource assigned which is over allocated. And we can right click for the options. Same down here. When you see that person, that means there's a resource over allocation issue, meaning someone is working more than 40 hours in a week. So we can actually right click and fix in Task Inspector, or you can manually fix it. We'll go into more detail in other videos on how to do that, but I just want to point out that this is showing us there's an issue here. I'm actually going to manually fix this. I'm going to go ahead and say that this task predecessor is also task 4, since we have a resource dependency. So this task 6 previously only had a dependency on task 5, but since the resource is working on task 4, I'm going to set the predecessor to task 4 as well. So that took away the red people. She's no longer over allocated, and we're in good shape. So we have our baseline, and this person is working on it. And by the way, when we extended the date, it pushed out the duration. It also changed the percent complete. It reduced it. So I'm going to move this back to 25%. Now let's say we have another task, and it's scheduled to start on the 16th. Let's say it has started, and it's scheduled to finish on the 17th, and maybe it ends up finishing earlier. Well, maybe it ends up finishing on the 16th, actually. So that brought in that date. On our Gantt chart view, we can see for this task here that it finished earlier than planned. And we can mark it 100%, or we can say it's 90%. It's not yet done, but it will be done. So you can manage the data this way. Using the baseline allows you to track what you had planned with what actually happens. But keep in mind that when you update the start and finish, the duration will be impacted for the actual duration of the task. Let's say this task here will take longer. I can increase the duration. It will increase the date. Let's say this task will take longer. I can increase the duration. It'll increase the date. Let's say this task will be shorter. If I reduce the duration, it will reduce the date. Now, as you can see, some of the changes I made shows that we have some resource over allocation issues again, but we're not going to focus on that right now. Anyway, this is just some information to help you understand how to work with baseline. I'm going to add a separate podcast to talk about the difference between baseline and there's another attribute that comes in project. These are all attributes. These are columns that you can show, which is the actual start, finish, duration, etc. Sometimes people are confused in terms of when to use those, and I'll release a podcast that will verbally explain when to use those. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me by opening a help desk ticket at ineedsupportplease.com. Have an excellent day.